All right, welcome back to another episode of Pillow Talk podcast. Here at Pillow Talk, we're trying to bridge the gap between entrepreneurship, culture, creativity, healthcare, mindset, and creativity. I might have repeated that, but yeah. So I'm your host, Norman. I'm a third year pharmacy student at UT College of Pharmacy. Just trying to do all the above, and yeah. So today I'm here with an amazing guest, Dr. Okpamen, and he is the Eli Lilly startup strategy leader, as well as the co-founder and chief business officer at Pills, or Pharmacy Initiative Leaders. And it's an amazing initiative, and something I've been able to be a part of through my connections with SNAFA, or Student National Pharmaceutical Association, and just really look up to Dr. Opperman and everything he's been doing in his journey, as well as his story and his personal brand and how he wants to build a legacy. But before I go into all that, and we have plenty of great questions that we want to go through, Dr. Opperman, would you like to introduce yourself and kind of go through that a little bit?
Yeah. Hello, everyone. And Norman, thank you again for this opportunity. As you could probably see if you're watching, or at least you'll hear it now, I'm representing both Go Cougs and Texas Southern, both of my alma maters and Texas bred through and through. So definitely with my people over there that are experiencing some of the winter weather and storms. But just to give a brief background of myself, I'm the first of three boys. Parents came here from Nigeria. Dad named me after Georgetown, which is the university in DC, where he came from Nigeria. And that's how I got the name George. Growing up, played ball at Stafford High, had some scholarships, and didn't really know what I was going to do after school outside of play ball until I went to Nigeria, met my grandparents for the first time, and then also met the doctor, which literally was a pharmacist who my parents named me after, who took care of our entire family, and his name was Osazua. And so seeing that and having that opportunities to really see where I came from, literally, but then figuratively see how intentional my parents were with raising me and giving me my name. It's something that positioned my mind to look forward to your point of legacy and really doing things that are bigger than me. And so that's where I pivoted into pharmacy, which my dad has been trying to do forever. He pulled out his golden ticket to get me to Nigeria to see that light. And that's when I started at U of H. Also started working at CVS at that time. And that's when I understood the basics and the foundations of pharmacy, and not just about quote unquote counting pills, but Annie Koshi, who was my pharmacist in charge at that time, she really challenged me to understand people, and she knew people by the top of their cars in the drive-through. She always was the pharmacist who every single time went out of the counter to go open the restroom for people instead of sending her text to do it. She's always the person that stopped her whatever she was doing from counseling after the fact to go out and tell people what milk to get or what diapers to get. And that I said those things intentionally because those aren't traditionally things that pharmacists are known for in the CVS or Walgreens stores. And so that just really positioned my mind into, hey, the personal touch the pharmacist can have, even after doing 500 scripts a day. But I also knew I wanted to do something non-traditional. While that was an awesome foundation, it casted my mind to, hey, I want to do something really big and generationally changing. And so for me, joining SNAFA was my first inkling to get to do that, where I got to lead people outside of my day-to-day. Fast forwarding, did University of Houston for my undergrad, then got to go to Texas Southern for pharmacy school. And that's where I became a CAPS coordinator at first because of my connections to U of H and TSU. And then fast forwarded, rose all the way to leading the first ever conference in Houston for SNAFA with my dream team, Femi, Jamila, and Amanda. And then the year after that, I'm winning national vice president, and the rest is history after that. When I got to become national vice president, it wasn't about the role. It was more about, again, leading 17 amazing board members, but then 5,000 people outside of that. And after doing that for a year and also getting an internship at BMS and the FDA, I knew that I wanted to go into the pharmaceutical industry because to me it was about building and leading teams, but then also getting to do new and non-traditional things after that. And so knowing that I've been talking for a little bit, I'll fast forward my story. I want to make sure this is clear. I did not get my fellowship the first time that I tried. I pursued a fellowship right after graduation, didn't get it. And I want people that are listening to this to understand, although my path looks so successful right now, I had a lot of failures and hiccups along the way, which I think is important and also builds character. And I knew, lucky enough, I had that same store, 5273 in Houston, Texas, that I got to work for after the fact because I already had that job. But then I knew I wanted to get in the industry, so I tried again the following year. got 4 offers, decided to go to Lilly. We can get into why later. And became the first person from Texas Southern to be a visiting scientist fellow. Became the first visiting scientist fellow to be directly in marketing. After that, became the only pharmacist and first to be in consumer marketing. And now I'm in the position I am now. It's a newly created position. And so I pride myself in creating new opportunities, but not just for me. I guarantee, and I shouldn't say guarantee, but I try my hardest to make sure there's a second, third, and fourth. And I've been pretty successful in doing that. So that's a little bit about me in a fast-forwarded way. I know I've been talking for some time, but we'll get into some of the details of those decisions and how they've shaped me over time.
Well, for sure. Like everything you just said resonated a lot with me. Like going back, seeing your homeland and seeing your culture and seeing where you came from, that helps ground you. And I think that's a really big key. And I think we'll touch on that later. And then as well as the wanting to give back, wanting to lead, but lead by example and create a legacy for yourself, but not just for yourself, but for the people that follow you. And then as well, I think the word came up a lot, non-traditional. And I think we'll definitely touch into like how maybe some of your experiences led you to kind of self-discovery of, maybe non-traditional is the path for me. And clearly that's resonating or exemplified now by your current role as a startup strategy leader at Eli Lilly Company. So let's go into kind of the first topic that we wanted to hit here, which was the creation and the thesis behind pills or pharmacy initiative leaders. So I interact with a lot of people from there. I know a lot of the other co-founders, Brian Saki, and remind me of the name. It passes me.
Josh. Yeah, Brian, Josh, and Onye. So those are the 4 co-founders.
There we go. Yeah, and obviously I've been able to interact with you a lot and help out with pills wherever I can, and as well as just SNAFA in general, being on the national board for Bridging the Gap chair. And but yeah, just can we hear like what was your thinking behind when you were helping co-found pills or pharmacy initiative leaders? What was kind of the thinking behind it? Were you trying to serve the underserved just like SNAFA? Was there an intention to create more leadership? What was the thinking there?
Yeah, so I'm gonna take a couple of steps back. I know when we say co-found, and this goes for any startup or any company, you really want to dig in and find the true origin story. And so the true origin story is really with Brian Saki, who is the founder. So there's founders and co-founders. The founder of Pills started at Howard University, and if you know anything about Howard, it's honestly probably where a lot of things start for the first time when you talk about the Black community. And just knowing Brian's story, and he can give it more personally, but just at the highest level, he started the organization after not seeing an organization for him that was going to help him get to where he needed to go. And quick story on Brian. Brian, very, very smart, coming from the DC area. He didn't have, his grades didn't show how smart he was, and he probably didn't have a lot of people rooting for him. And there was every organization that was there, and those organizations were able to help him until he decided to create his own. And we think of that mentality in all of our co-founders. But again, that was something that was started at Howard, and it's still even actually there today. But if you think about it, a company, any company, if you want it to get bigger, you can't do it by yourself. And so as Brian started to see like, wow, he's about to graduate, he wants what he has created to be expanded. He looks to the first person as his first, I wouldn't call it hire, but person number 2 at Pills, Josh Blackwell. And they got lucky in a residency opportunity to where both they met in Houston. And Josh is one of my best friends, my brother. And we had served together on the national board for SNAFA. And same with Onye. And so I became person number 3 and Onye person number 4. And all of us together were able to take our collective backgrounds in national leadership, and then Brian's seed and sowing what he sowed at Howard to take it bigger. You said something about SNAFA, and I'll be very clear, like SNAFA is still an organization that has my heart because it grew my skills. And we talk about non-traditional. SNAFA before me didn't have an executive chairman or executive consultants or some of the partnerships they have today. Like I was the hands, I'm the first executive chairman, first consultant. And so I'm able to see how to like expand an organization and expand opportunities that weren't existing before me. It was my place where it grew my leadership style and let me know what's possible. Right. So when we started to create Pills at a national scale, and we took it to amplify what Brian had already started, and this is where the co-founders start. It's one thing to found it in a pocket. It's another thing to take the organization, if you want to call it public, IPO it. And
Right.
so as we talk about that, that's where literally he couldn't do that without myself, Josh, and Onya, even by documentation, because that's what it takes, but then also vision and what we don't want to do. And so there's already, when we talk about non-traditional, SNAFA is, in a good way, a traditional engine that every year is going to have 5,000 students, going to have 100 chapters. One day it'll have 200. And we didn't want to recreate that wheel. What we saw the gap was, and that we don't want to just bridge a gap, we want to close the gap, is making sure that pharmacists are connected across every stage of healthcare. And when we talk about that, not just pharmacists in pharmacy areas, but outside of pharmacy areas of healthcare. Healthcare moving forward is going to be in tech. Healthcare moving forward is going to be at the barbershop. Healthcare moving forward is going to be in creativity and artwork, in buying homes, in all of these things. And as we think of that, we have our roadmap. But how could we start with the vision of being in places and spaces where pharmacists are not at first originally, but then building a pipeline and a future place to where we're going to be at every stage. And that's where that came from. And then talking about the thesis of pills, in short, as we're taking it to where we're taking it, it's about empowering exponentially diversity. And pharmacists are diverse, not just by color of skin, but as you think of the healthcare facet community, anytime someone thinks about healthcare, they think about doctors, nurses, those types of things. So pharmacists, by just even saying pharmacists, we're talking about the diverse sets of skills and multidisciplinary functions that pharmacists have, and making sure it is at every stage. And so we want to continue that. And we're starting traditionally with the foundation of, okay, let's make sure we solidify as a company that's able to pipeline diversity into fellowships and residencies. Like, that's our bread and butter. Let's make sure that we're able to have an ambassadors community. So we understand that we have a community, and let's make sure that we're able to provide people with coaches and proteges and things, that we're making sure we have people taking care of people and pulling them, not just telling them, but pulling them, coaching them, and promoting them, propelling them to places that they need to be. So in short, making sure that pharmacists are at every stage of healthcare is what we aim to do. And we're going to do that in a lot of non-traditional ways.
Yeah, that's amazing, because that really resonates with me, like amplifying those words and then cultivating and just really helping build those foundations for pharmacy students and pharmacists to be at every single stage of healthcare. That's an ambitious goal, but y'all are clearly doing it. Especially, I love the part about the mentorship program, the ambassadorship program, where you're creating a pipeline of mentors to pass on their knowledge and bring up other people who want to have that experience or want to learn more. I was part of University Leadership Network in undergrad at UT Austin, and it was a program designated specifically for underserved, first generation, non-traditional first year undergraduates at UT Austin, which is traditionally a white institution. But yeah, no, it was being part of that program. I ended up becoming a lead mentor, peer mentor, and then building that mentorship program, being able to create programs that could cultivate leaders and cultivate mentors that were able to pass on and help bring up those other mentees, especially, coming from a small town or coming from the inner city, XYZ, and you're coming to this big institution, very culturally diverse, and it's very much a culture shock. And coming into that, when you're able to provide a sense of community for them, provide resources for them, so that they can develop as professionals. I think that's a lot of what y'all do at Pills, and I think that's very admirable, because I resonate with that a lot from my past experience. We had over at a given point, it's 2,000 students, 500 in each 4-year cohort. So yeah,
That's awesome.
Yeah, and so yeah, that definitely resonates with me. Yeah,
That's awesome.
yeah. So with that, I just love the thesis of Pills, as, and obviously with my connections with SNAFA. But moving on to that point, so we've kind of interacted a lot through Instagram, and clearly you have a great personal brand that you've been able to kind of to cultivate around building up Pills, but as well as utilizing that personal brand to help bring up other pharmacy students, as well as kind of leverage that into your possibly your new position. Maybe they took a look at your personal brand whenever they were thinking of you for this new position or creating this new position for you at Eli Lilly. Can you speak a little bit to that? Like, what does it mean to have a personal brand in pharmacy, as well as just otherwise in general? Can you speak of it, especially in a 2021?
Yeah, I'll probably take this from Gary Vee, but I definitely believe like a personal brand is more about a personal reputation, and a reputation being like, what are people saying about you before you enter the room, when you're not in the room.
Yep.
But they can only say that based off of the outcomes and results you've continued to produce. I mean, so in short, personal brand to me is more about a reputation. And so to the point of my current role inside Eli Lilly, like a lot of stuff I've done outside of Lilly, great. But inside of Lilly, I was also a co-founder of our first ever young professionals employee resource group called it Early Career Professionals. I was in charge of the branding and the strategy there. And that organization grew from about 5 to 7 co-founders across the company to the 2,000 members that it has now. That's probably one of the biggest things that I was known for initially. And when you think of that, that was in 2015, 2016. And then fast forward, started another organization called LEAP, Leverage, Engage, and Advance Pharmacists. And so that's an organization that is similar to Pills, but inside of Eli Lilly, to where we're able to partner with organizations like SNAP and IPHO, but then also give and find a way to give scholarships and money to them through our business case. And then also through other partnerships that we're even doing moving forward. And then started LEAP at Lilly, and it's also even helped to transform the way we name and call things internally at Lilly. And then the last thing I'll say is being the chairman of our MAD team, which is our Marketing Associates Development team, which I just rolled off as a chair for the last 2 years, but I'm the executive chairman now and helping to coach the current chairs. But that organization inside of Lilly is pretty much has all the top marketers at the associate level. And we've been able to shape the way Lilly does marketing from a community, a clarity of roles, and a consistency of outcome standpoint. And so those 3 roles back to back to back, I think was something, to your point, I hadn't even talked about my work of leading from a brand standpoint of Vaccini and leading that work to where people are like, okay, he thinks a little differently. He has some of the skill sets that you can't really put on paper, and he's able to help and harness teams. Definitely something that's put me where I'm at today. But as I think about reputation just globally, I think about it from a standpoint of inside of where I work, so my corporation, and then outside in terms of community, and bringing those 2 together. And so how am I having a reputation that is almost, and the people that I mentor or coach hear me say this all the time, how am I pendulum swinging? So how am I using my skills and my gifts and pendulum swinging them between the corporate world and the non-corporate world, the social, or if you want to call it community. And if you look at my skill set or your skill set or anyone's skill set, a lot of people talk about turning it off when they get off of work. And I've just figured out a way to be who I am in the company and outside the company. And that's why I call it the pendulum swing. And if you look at a lot of my roles and what I do, it's kind of the same thing, but then it's not, because then I'm pulling from the resources. We have resources at Eli Lilly that we don't have at Pills, but vice versa. At the same time, helping to find ways to find a middle ground. That's where there's LEAP. But then also within there, that's where I'm getting some of the coaching and guidance and getting even more proteges throughout those. And then they're helping to spread across the same thing. And when you do that, that's the exponential thing. And it's just like money, it capitalizes over time. And then it becomes something that is like, it's a rolling reputation, taking it back to where we started. And if you do it over and over again, just like an athlete, just like someone that's a doctor or anything like that, you keep doing stuff over and over again, you get better and better and better, and it becomes your reputation. No one's questioning LeBron James. He doesn't have a personal brand. I mean, he does, but the point is he's LeBron James. And so anything he does, he's now getting into movies, he's now getting into alcohol, he's getting into clothing, he's getting into building like a house, and when I have a house, a creative house in terms of those types of things.
Mod
people
pizza,
are going to be expecting,
investing.
Thinking about exactly. It becomes over time. It's like, I mean, he's great. Like everybody wants to work with LeBron, which by nature, he was already going to be great, but he's turned his greatness, he's pendulum swung into his basketball skills, into his friendships, his life, his relationships, his investments, and things like that. And so those are the types of people. Kobe obviously was on his way doing that too. Those are the type of people that I emulate or I look up to in the sports world. But then how do I bring that into the corporate world? But then also, how do I share that with my proteges, i.e. the Chelseas, the Yannis, and people like that, the Mitches, to make sure that people are also getting from me, not when I make it to wherever I make it to, but along the way. That's the reputation that I want to have, that I'm building. I'm not waiting until the end that my legacy is built. Like I'm building not just my legacy, I'm building our legacy, and people are part of that legacy so that they're also understanding how to build a legacy for themselves as well.
Yeah, no, that's amazing. Yeah, I agree. Like it's just your personal reputation, and your experiences are just the what that exemplify what your why is, what your legacy wants to be. And it's not about for me, like how I define personal brand, it's how you help other people, right? And clearly you've demonstrated that through your roles, but as well as through Leap at Lilly and through creating pills, as well as just your general personal brand and how people know you when you walk into the room, and just like LeBron does as well. But yeah, do you have any concrete tips for, I guess, for pharmacy students or for students in general or just people in general for how to create a personal brand?
Yeah, so concrete, and I will say that whatever I'm about to say right now is not something that I thought about for a long time. So
Mm,
I'll just try to think of how I was blessed to come into where I'm at today. And when I think of it, obviously I've had a lot of roles, and people can look at all the things that happened. But again, it
yeah.
probably started from a space of wanting to give before I got, and wanting to give to people before I got anything else. And as I think of that, just that holistically, I had to also know myself and know what I wanted to give.
Mm,
I mean, the easiest thing is giving your time. The easiest thing is being involved in I mean, again, going all the way back to Stafford High School, I was always involved in something, whether it was
mm,
refereeing for the student SYBA, Stafford Youth Basketball Association.
yeah.
And again, yeah, I got paid here and there, but again, it still was a kind of a volunteer type of thing. To
Mm,
fast forward to U of H, still to joining the Black Student Union or becoming an alpha. And those things, again, at the surface sounds like, oh, just an organization, but those organizations groomed me to understand, even in terms of being a part of those organizations, you had to give of yourself and of your time
mm,
before you got you got to reap the rewards of what those organizations were. So then giving and being a part of SNAPA. And so as I think of the fast forward of that is, one, having a mentality of giving is part one. Part two, really understanding and knowing yourself, having the reflection time to know yourself and know the gifts that you want to give. And so as you're giving a gift. A gift literally is free.
yeah.
You're not getting any return of the gift.
Mm,
And when you understand your gift and you give it away for free, that's when it's truly a gift. But you have to know what that is. So taking
yep.
the time to reflect.
To
I got
reflect.
lucky. So
Yeah.
concreteness. I got lucky to where, as part of the SNAPA leadership team, we got to do the Berkman method, which is any one of these colorful leadership things that tell you your color, if you're red, blue, green, or I'm forgetting the names of other ones right now. But there's all these different free quizzes or tests that you can take that tell you more about yourself. Stand Out is another one that we do at Lilly.
Gallup Strength
Essential
Finders.
Strength Finders, all of those types of
Yeah.
things. And so taking the time, and even it might cost $10 to $20 to do it.
Yeah.
Obviously, SNAPA pays for hours, and ours cost more. But taking the time, that's a very concrete thing, because then you'll see it'll actually write out a story about you, and you'll be surprised just how, even if it's not 100%, it's 90% or 80% of like who you are and
Yeah.
what you're into. And if you take a couple of those, you start to see themes. So really using those things to understand who you are. And then the last thing I'll say is, so many people have the mindset. So many people do or give the gifts. And that third part of it is to really do that consistently over time so that it compounds. Again, when you're able to really have a mindset of giving over time, when you're able to truly give of your gift, and let's just say your gift is public speaking, because I'm going to use that as a concrete example.
Mhm.
As you continue to give away your gift of public speaking, hopefully you get paid one day. But even as you're giving away and talking to students and things like that, you start to refine that gift, and you start to see themes of that gift, to where lastly, as you're doing it over time for 3 years, 4 years, 10 years, you get to do a couple of TED Talks. You get to write a book off of your learnings. You get to see the themes of what you've been talking about, to really wrap that up and package it in the world to, again, have that reputation. And you'll be surprised, again, staying on public speaking, how that also puts you in the front to lead people, lead things, which then literally directly goes into your professional job and professional opportunity that you have, because you're publicly speaking and sharing the gift that you have. I just use that as an example, but using that example, using that mentality, those are probably the three things I'd say. One, being able to have a mentality of giving. Two, being able to give your gift and hone it over time. And three, be able to do that consistently, that being the mentality and the gift giving of whatever that is that means to you. And if you can do those three things, things will start to shape around that. But
Right.
So many people don't stay consistent. And so many people are wanting to charge for their gifts when they're just getting started. Of course, over time, when you've been doing it for 4 or 5 years, you definitely want to start to earn off of that. But initially, you're learning just as much as people are learning from you. So
Building
have a
your
mindset of
craft.
giving it away for free.
Building your brand. Yeah. No,
Yep.
that's y'all heard it here. Everybody who's watching, y'all heard it here. Those 3 tips right there. For me, the hardest part wasn't necessarily like the second point, like the authenticity, knowing yourself, taking these tests, taking the time to read more books, find out more resources about, what are my strengths, what are my talents, what value do I offer to the world, to society, to my profession, to my family, to my friends. It was just all about asking the right questions for myself. But then the third point, I think, was what really hit home for me, because it goes consistency, right? Patience. We often think that, oh, I know myself, I have the talent, I know how to, I always give, I give, but it's not coming to me right away. And a lot of us get frustrated because we expect results right away. And it's the concept of instant gratification, right? Versus delayed gratification. And it's knowing that it's all about loving the process, right? Like Joel Embiid, it's all about the process, right? But yeah, just knowing that you have to truly love what you're doing, what you offer to the world, how you give it, and how you box it and give it out, whether it's through social media, whether it's through your organization, whether it's through your company, whatever that is, how you do that, knowing that it's going to lead to the end result in the end, and thinking with the end in mind, I think is super key to being patient. Because if you get too lost in the sauce and you're all about the likes, you're all about the comments, you're all about the people praising you, and you get too high on that, it tends to lead to I guess egotistical thinking, or just getting too high and mighty on yourself. And then when something doesn't go your way, you kind of fall off the tracks, and you lead off, you stray off the beaten path, right? And yeah,
And
go for it.
no, and even just to because I'm hearing you and knowing you and your background, and then knowing myself too. What I can also see people saying is like, how do you stay consistent? And the one thing I didn't say is probably the cherry on top is to make sure that you are taking time for yourself to pour into yourself. Because you talked about the books, you talked about, and I think about, even as you're talking, some of the things that have poured into me. And it's funny, like being a part of SNAFA or being a part of Pills does refill my cup, because I get to, while you're giving, I'm getting poured into by some of my proteges as well. I'm getting poured into by the Kayandas. I'm getting poured into by the Rainas. I'm getting poured into by some of the people that are around me, even that are quote unquote, under me. But then also just literally being intentional with filling my mind and my heart and my soul. One, by taking time to rest, which I think everyone learned in 2020 is a good thing. Yeah. But even like books that you might see in the background, or podcasts, and don't be afraid. A lot of those books that are up there, some of them I actually read, the other ones I've listened to via audiobook. Don't be afraid to, I actually always buy the book, but get the information how you get the information. And when I say that, based off of what you need. So staying on public speaking, like listening or watching YouTubes of public speakers, of TED, or of things like that, or being a part of different organizations that hone that skill, that you're not so much giving, but you're getting your cup refilled, and you're able to just take it in. And so I think that's also a very important part of the puzzle. And that might take it to 4 things, but having intentional time to pour back into you so that you can continue to give and stay consistent, because that's how you're able to stay consistent, by staying on top of your own health and recovering, but then also taking other mediums, podcasts, YouTubes, any way you get information Instagram, to pour back into you, to Instagram.
And now Clubhouse.
Yes. So now I think that's very important.
No, absolutely. And I think you touched on another point that I'd just like to harp on a little bit. The community you build around yourself, not necessarily the people under you or above you. That's all part of your community, right? All part of your network, your community, the relationships that you build. Those are the people that pour back into you, that inspire you, that motivate you, that help you figure out who you are and what value it is that you bring to the table when you're doubting yourself, when you've gotten off the beaten path and strayed off of it. I'm not sure about the wording there, but yeah, it's for me, it's been incredible, because I'm grateful that I have a supportive support system who actually understands me and supports me in what I'm doing, like doing interviews like this. And yeah, I think it's very crucial that you find the people who truly understand you and are willing to give you that feedback, in addition to the inspiration and motivation. Yeah, I think you hit a really key point there.
Yeah. No, it is very important.
Yep. All right. And so we're moving into the latter half here. I know it's already 10, and I know we wanted to go Instagram live as well. So yeah, I was just, this is a really key point, and please, by all means, take as much time as you want on this point, because I think it's the most important point, especially being cognizant that it is February, Black History Month. So how did your culture play a part into your journey as you said, a high school football player, as a SNAFA, as a student pharmacist, and now into your current roles at Eli Lilly and pharmaceutical industry? How did that all kind of play a role into your legacy, into leadership, and then, failure and self-discovery? How did that all kind of wrapped up and played a role into who you are today?
Yeah, I mean, culture is probably the missing ingredient that a lot of people try to not incorporate, especially at the level that I'm at and the level that I'm going. And I think it's very important. And culture is a very overused word that people don't really, again, think through as much. And so for me, as I think of culture, and I'm not the dictionary to say this is what it means, but what it means to me, culture is literally my background, my foundation, what I choose to, if you want to call it, listen to and be around, like my ecosystem, and then to what I choose to, if you want to call it, create. And so those three things, my background, what I choose to live in presently, and then the future, that's how I see culture. And for me, being Nigerian is probably the first part of that. And more specifically, being from Edo State, growing up, being called an African booty scratcher, it probably made my skin a little tough, but then also at the same time made me not really want to associate with my culture a lot, to be honest, growing up. And so knowing that and like still can remember to this day, first, second grade, missing the first or second day of class so I wouldn't hear my name called for the role, and going to the side of the teacher and telling them like, hey, change Osazua to George, so I wouldn't sound or be seen as African, but my last name is still Okpamen, so that's not going anywhere. I still remember that like vividly. But it wasn't until I went to Nigeria and met my grandparents for the first time that I saw, like, I mean, news is crazy. I mean, the news will show you that Africa is nothing but lions and tigers and bears.
And
I go to Africa and Nigeria.
No water.
Yeah. And you see, I mean, I saw that. I mean, I still to this day have seen houses and cars and stuff bigger and better than I've seen here in America. I'm lucky and I'm blessed that my grandfather, he's a chief. And so similar to being like a mayor or governor here in the States. And so he has literally acres of land. My mom was one of 12 and just being taken care of like a king. But then on the flip side, I did get to see the poverty. I did get to see my dad was one of 5 and they weren't so well-to-do. And getting to see where he grew from. And again, if I never, ever went back there to see that and see my grandparents and see like my family come from, both the sacrifices, because again, I think my mom took a level down and my dad took a lot of levels up, just seeing how they met each other, obviously. Right. Just knowing what they did for me and staying there for a month. My gift and my curse is that it takes, I think, very fast. So sometimes I talk fast, but a month is probably, for me, it's probably like a year for other people. I really contextualize things very quickly. And so that was all I needed to visualize where I wanted to be. And so my supreme goal has always been to be able to build opportunities back, all the way back to Africa. And I didn't have to do that directly. It was that's what drove me to do something non-traditional and go the pharma route. And as I got into pharma, I started to see those same things that I saw for African Americans and Africans for pharmacists. I saw that pharmacists weren't seen as equal to other healthcare practitioners, which we see currently, but you see it in pharma. You see MDs are the ones leading med affairs. So you see PhDs or whatever are the ones that are leading strategy in a commercial space. And I wanted to help to change that. And so that was something that I immediately wanted to do and have successfully at least done my part in building a pipeline, not just at Lilly, but at other companies for pharmacists to be in places that they weren't literally just 4 or 5 years ago before I started. And then if you think of it longer term, and so culture first being my heritage and where I'm coming from, then culture being my profession, but then moving forward, culture being what I feel like I can create. I feel that I can create culture. I don't wait for culture, or I don't wait for, honestly, where I see life going to be created for me. Obviously, I'm living where I'm living. I'm thankful to God for what he's done for me. But I wholeheartedly believe you can create the things that you want in this world. And part of that is culture. I can create what it means to be a pharmacist in the next 5 years. And having a team of people that, at least through pills or through Leap at Lilly, or through anything else I get involved in the future, to help the people, the teams that do that. It ties back everything we talked about. It ties back the reputation that we talked about. It ties back the foundation of pills that we talked about, of being at every stage. And it ties back culture is really like what are you creating, collaborating, or curating for other people? Because you can have culture for yourself, but culture is amplified when you're able to bring along and harness other people. Yep, and so you bring it by the things that I'm doing. How am I creating that culture now for others so that they see it and they want to be a part of it as well? I'm creating the vision of what I believe culture will be in the future, and being a part of that across many dimensions, whether it is pharmacy, tech, finances, friends, family, heritage, bringing all those things together in a pot, creating what that looks like versus segmenting it to only being one piece of the pie. So it sounded like a lot of words, but in short, culture to me is where you're from, where you are at today, and where you're going. And I believe the first two are kind of, hey, they're already kind of set in a way. But that last one is the one that I don't think too many people think through too much, and also don't feel like they can influence. And so I definitely feel that I can create or influence the culture moving forward. And I've been lucky enough to do my part in doing that in some of the things I'm involved in today.
Yeah, moving the needle. Yeah, no, I love to hear it because, I think a quote that I'm probably going to try to take out of here is you create your own culture, right? Like you create your culture, and people, if you're able to create a culture that I guess appeals to enough people, and they'll want to be part of that vision that they can aspire to, right? Buying into a better version of themselves as part of this culture, and that's what you're kind of offering, right? With what you do through Eli Lilly, what you do with pills, what you do with Leap at Lilly, things like that. So I 100% agree. To touch on a point that I think really resonated with me personally was where you said when you went back to, I think we've talked about this before, but you went back to Nigeria, and I think this was before pharmacy school, right? This was during undergraduate.
Before pharmacy school.
Before pharmacy school, and you went back to Nigeria, and you saw how your father was a chieftain. Is that correct? Was a chief?
Grandfather was a chief. Yeah.
Grandfather was a chieftain, and you saw how great things were there, but you also saw the poverty. You saw some of the misgrievings and things like that, and how that kind of gave you almost like a compass, right? Like it gave you a North Star to kind of say, oh, this is who I am. These are my values. This is my culture. This is my traditions, my values. This is where I come from. And it kind of grounds you, right? For me, it was when I went back to Vietnam, also right before pharmacy school, literally the summer right before. Went back for a month and got to see my family. And I had been back before, but I, wasn't of the right age and of the right mindset where I was now, where I was very my mindset was amenable, I guess, to open to that kind of change. And especially because it's right before pharmacy school, where I know I won't have the time to do anything else. But yeah, just like seeing where I come from, this is where my values are, my traditions, my culture. Like I just celebrated Lunar New Year, and I take it so much more seriously than I ever have, because I know it's part of my responsibility to help perpetuate that culture, to keep moving it forward, but to keep it evolving as well, not just to keep it stagnant, but to keep it moving it forward into humanity, and where we're moving forward with culture across the globe. Not that I'm trying to spread culture everywhere, but just the fact that I embody my culture, right, and my traditions, my values, and seeing, but also at the same time seeing the poverty, seeing people peeing on the street and defecating on there, and but also just eating, but also being very content too with the state of things. They're very grateful just for whatever it was they have. And I was so surprised, because for me, I was like, oh, there's so much poverty, there's so much like fossil fuels, like gets gas everywhere, everybody's riding motorbikes and things like that, and I could think, how can anybody live here? But these people, they're just so content, so grateful just for what they have. And that's what really hit me. That gave me my sense of gratitude, knowing where I come from, but also that if I can help improve things, hopefully they'll be even more grateful for what they have if I can come back eventually someday and help build something there. But yeah, I just wanted to harp on that point because it really resonates with me as well.
Yeah, no, it's funny because you said stuff about the grounding, and I know I've gotten a lot of good kudos on my headliner on LinkedIn in terms of grounding, galvanizing.
I was going to look that up.
Generating, growing. But no, it's based off of literally some of the stuff you just said. And when you talk about grounding, it's staying grounded in like your origin, your origin story, and who and why you're doing what you're doing. So grounding, that's literally where that comes from. Galvanizing. How are you able to galvanize other people towards a mission to help them understand what their origins and what they're doing. And after you galvanize people, how are you generating new and better and greater opportunities with them? And again, like not everything I've said so far is doing it with other people. And then lastly, because it's not just you, it's others, how are you growing outcomes and positive outcomes, hopefully, for the people around you and the people who can't even see you. And that's really what those 4 things mean. And it's a reminder for me to keep it G. And 2021 is really about me, born January 21st. This is the year 2021, after the year that was 2020, and reminding me of why I'm here and how I'm able to do that. That's my gift. A lot of the stuff that you hear starts with G, and I kind of ran away from that a little bit. I always focused on the O and the O, Osuzua first, or the legacy, Okpamen last, and a lot of the stuff that's inside of you is G, energy. And no matter, you heard that word, energy, I'm synonymous with that as well. How am I keeping God first? I mean, no matter what God you serve, that's the energy. But then the inner gratitude, the inner grace, the inner grounding, generating, galvanizing, whatever that energy is, like how are you keeping that? And really making sure you're keeping it to then make that be embodied for others and more people become attracted to it. And then before you know it again, that's how you create culture. That's how you create an environment. That's how you create the things that we've talked about already. That's how you're able to be at every stage. That's how you're able to build pipelines. That's how you're able to stay consistent. And so those are some of the things that I was like, hey, I mean, LinkedIn always talks about like what you are. And people always think that you have to be what your title is. Like, yeah, that's probably true. And my title is what I create. It's about grounding. Yeah. It's about stuff that have nothing to do with Eli Lilly or pills. It's about who you truly are and what you want to give to the world.
It's your North Star.
When more people see that,
it grounds you.
Yeah, it's your North Star. It allows other people to follow that North Star too in their way. And and before you know it, you turn around and you've changed the world. And you've changed culture, going back to how we started it.
Yeah, no, absolutely amazing, Dr. Okpamen. Yeah, I think, I think a lot of people can learn from that. But just to harp back on a point, because I think you might have skipped over it just a little bit about, I guess, the undergraduate part, TSU, U of H, and then pharmacy school. Touching back on that point, because we've talked about it before, self-discovery, failure, and just learning about yourself and legacy and how that's played out and how you've learned from those experiences, failing forward, right? Keep that same energy, hashtag, right? That's the first one I got from you. Can you speak a little bit about your experiences as a pharmacy student, as an undergraduate student, those experiences of failure, of self-discovery and regrounding yourself a little bit?
Yeah, I'll speak a lot of it about it. And yeah, this is probably the first time you're right that I haven't said it like very, very clearly. I said it, but I didn't say it to your point. Like the reason why I have this beard is based off of failure, to be honest. And that's why I'll never cut it off, to be honest. It's when I got suspended from pharmacy school, and I didn't care about anything. Didn't care about cutting my hair. Didn't care about any of those things.
What year was this?
It was 20. I don't know exactly, but let's just go with 2010, 2011. It was like P3 year.
P3 year.
So I got suspended for a semester. So I graduated in December. So I was off of a semester. And that in itself, we'll get to that. But I was great at chemistry in undergrad. Orgo Chem, I got A's and B's. And for those that know, Orgo Chem, you don't get A's and B's. And so I got a little cocky. And as I got into pharmacy school, I didn't go as hard in chemistry, to be honest. So I failed it the first time, but at Texas Southern, we have it to where you fail a class, you can take it that summer. Well, that was the first summer that they didn't have summer classes. So I had to take it again the following year, which was okay. But then again, I didn't learn my lesson and I failed it again. And if you fail a class twice, you can literally get kicked out, which a lot of people got kicked out because they didn't just fail 2 classes. I only failed it by a little bit. I think it was like 0.5. So they gave me one more chance, but I had to get suspended.
Just for context, our audience understands something about Texas Southern University. Is that a historically Black college university?
Yeah,
there you go.
It's a HBCU. So literally right across the street from University of Houston. But yeah, again, in my mind, I never saw myself. I got into pharmacy school. I never saw myself failing out, and I mean, I got really close. I got suspended, and literally it was at that time I was my P2 year. So now I remember that was my P2 year. I didn't know it at the time, but that's when my dad, and again, I didn't know this until I knew this. My dad fell out of pharmacy school. He did fill out in his P2 year at Texas Southern University, and there was still a professor who, for people from TSU, will know his name, Dr. Mo, who taught my dad.
Wow.
And he was like, "Hey, don't be like your dad." Like, that's what he told me. I'm like, "What are you talking about?" And he's like, "Your dad hasn't told you." And that was the time where my dad told me the journey of how he got into 8 pharmacy schools, fell out of all of them. And Texas Southern was the last one. And I wouldn't know that because we're still a middle-class family living in Sugar Land. Things are going well. And he figured it out. And obviously that was before me. But that also, going back to your question of legacy and understand why I'm here, it scared me straight. And also allowed me to understand why I'm where I'm at, like why I'm at Texas Southern, why I'm pursuing pharmacy, and why I got to pass chemistry, which I did. And again, taking it back to the beard story, it also signified not caring about how I looked and caring about the most important thing, which was passing chemistry. And that year I grew out my hair and my beard and got back into school and promised myself that, hey, I'm not going to worry about what other people think anymore. I'm not going to worry about like things that are not important. But it was also, when you talk about self-discovery, also keen to me to let me know that if I focus, if I pray, if I keep the main thing that I can achieve. So moving forward, it always taught me like, hey, things are going to look good or look a certain way. And as I get unfocused, always focusing on the main thing. Fast forward, I was probably the most decorated pharmacy student my P4 year going for fellowships. Didn't get a fellowship the first time. And again, what did I do? Kept the main thing. Worked for CVS, the same store I've been working at for some time. And then an opportunity popped up for me to help lead NAFA to the level it's at now.
What is NAFA, just so people understand?
Oh, SNAFA, not NAFA, Student National Pharmaceutical Association. So I became their first executive chairman while at the same time pursuing industry. And so that experience, though, gave me literally on my CV the opportunity to say, hey, yes, I'd worked for CVS, but then I had the foresight to reorganize the organization and to grow it from, at that time, it was 3,000 student members, had built a plan for it to become 5,000, helped to build their first social network. It's funny to believe that SNAFA at that time before me didn't have a Twitter or a Facebook because we didn't want to be on social media at the time, and helped to build that on out now to where we have obviously all the things that we have. And I say we, they, because I'm no longer obviously a part of SNAFA. But at the time, those experiences were experiences that I was able to talk through for fellowships the following year. And funnily enough, when I applied the first time, I applied for only regulatory affairs roles. So if you know me, you know that's not who I am. So it was a blessing in the sky, And so the second year when I applied to corporate policy and corporate development roles on top of regulatory, because I still did that because I thought that was what I was supposed to do. That's when I got the offers that I got because my experience is more aligned to that. And so that failure, to your point of failing forward, the first one was, hey, pharmacy school and being able to understand my dad and my story and why I'm here. The second one was literally being able to position myself for my professional a bit more. And then the second one would come after I've already got the fellowship, the third, I should say. The third one would come after I've already gotten my fellowship and I'm trying to get into marketing. Traditionally at Lilly, you have to get into marketing through the Lilly Marketing Academy. And the Visiting Scientist Fellowship traditionally doesn't put people into marketing. They put people into medical affairs or science roles. And so again, fighting up an uphill battle, I unfortunately didn't get into the Lilly Marketing Academy, but it got all the way up to the CMO of the company at the time. And he said that I can get into oncology marketing, which oncology payer marketing, which again, as you know, marketing is not truly marketing, but hey, it was my way in. But it was a blessing in disguise because I got to get on a brand and be with a leader, Bob Redman, who was a younger leader and who allowed me to learn very, very quickly because he was a first-time leader. And so he gave me a lot of opportunities that I probably wouldn't got from a leader that was more seasoned, probably on accident. But then it also allowed me to see a launch brand. And when we're getting a product from another company, I got to see how that happened and accelerated my learnings. And then also he was building a team. So over time, I got to pretty much be his chief of staff to help as we onboarded new people over the next year or two. So those learnings were very foundational to then propel me to true marketing, putting quotes in the air, to where I got to lead the launch of Vaccini as a consumer marketer. And so as you think of, again, failing forward, I didn't get into LMA, but then I got into marketing directly without the training I was supposed to have, but then got that on the job training through my job and fire and things like that. And so those three things, long stories of failing and really looking for lessons within there, but then also not just looking, doing, and continuing to work through some of those things so they're not a crutch. Sometimes failure is both a learning, but also something that repivots you to where you're supposed to be. And so I always try to find the lesson. And when I fail and it hurts, it stings, it's not always great. I've had failure or heartbreak, especially in 2020, which I'm sure a lot of people have. And I try to intentionally look for the learning. That's what I'm grounded in. Okay, so what is this teaching me? Or where is this repositioning me? And it also forces me to reach out to people I probably haven't reached out to in a long time whenever I'm going through situations for guidance, which I think is also important. And you'll hear from these people, from these things, where you're supposed to go in terms of what's next. And again, like not letting failure cripple you is probably the most important thing. Allowing it to make you do some type of action, whether it's reflection, whether it's reaching out to people, whether it's recovering, those types of things where it's not something that you sit in or you stay in for a long time.
Well, I'm going to take a little quote out of your book, out of what you've written before. But failure, you grow through what you go through. Correct? Correct me if I'm wrong with this. Yep. And so then just taking this from other role models that I have and aspirational leaders, like I think it was Oprah Winfrey who says that failure is life telling you that you're supposed to change direction or something like that, right? Like it's telling you that wasn't meant for you, right? But there's still other ways to get there, right? And then like Randy Pausch, right? The last lecture, right? Those brick walls that are set up in front of you, they're meant to keep other people out. But you're meant to climb over the wall. It's just a matter of how bad do you want it? Is this actually for you? And just telling you to ask the right questions for yourself and learning from those experiences. And so, I 100% agree with learning from failure. And that's literally what I've done. I've failed many, many a time now. And honestly, I think Gary Vee talks about this, right? Like he loves losing. He loves just losing all the time because it teaches him more and more about whatever it is he's doing, the process, how he can refine it and make it better for whoever it is he's serving, right? And I take that to heart too.
Yeah, and that last part, because I think people take that the wrong way, what Gary Vee's talking about. And even as you hear it, like the losing means like you're stretching yourself, like you're really challenging yourself. And the failure, like if you're not failing at least once or twice a year, you're probably not trying hard enough. And I'm not saying that in a funny way. And some people like to be comfortable. Some people like to learn on those things. But if you have a growth mindset and you want to grow, I always take it back to working out. And when you work out and you work out to failure, if you work out and you're always able to lift what you can lift, you're not really growing. When you lift to failure and you lift to where you're literally breaking your muscles and not killing yourself, but breaking the muscle fibers to then regrow stronger. That's the same thing with life in terms of what you're going for. And you should, again, be hopefully if you're trying to grow and chase big, audacious, generational type of change, you have to be failing because that means now you're in an area to where either you're going to learn to pivot to a different area or, as you just mentioned, all right, that was a nice little wall there. You need to get a little bit stronger to climb this wall, or it's a nice little wall there. You get stronger to break through the wall. But if you want it, this is something that's going to be able to really push you to gain new skills and new ways of getting through that wall. So,
yeah, no, 100% agree. Yeah, the walls are meant to keep other people out, but not you. Yeah, you're meant to get stronger, figure out a way to climb that or just break through it completely, whatever it is. But so I think it's about time. I know we've already been doing this for a while. Did you have any other last minute tips or advice for pharmacy students before I let you give a little time to plug anything else that you're doing, but specifically right here is any other advice for pharmacy students specifically?
Yeah, I mean, this is more long-term because I think pharmacy students literally don't understand the power that they have already. So the first part is to be super confident in yourself, whether you got there by tricking the admissions officer or you got there because of your grades, you deserve to be there and you have some gift to be where you're at. The second part is not waiting until you're done with pharmacy school to invest back into other people, invest back and forward. And so again, you're smart enough to probably give some even I'll just talk to you directly, Norman. You're smart enough and savvy enough to give some pharmacists advice on how to build their own personal reputation, how to deal with tech, how to do things like that. And so not waiting until you have the PharmD under your name to be able to do that, which obviously you're not waiting to do that. But then also investing backwards into the people that want to be in your position. There's so many high school people or middle school people who think that pharmacy is dead because that's what the world is telling them. Yep. And then you're literally a living representation of how pharmacists can be become the future in a different way. And so giving back, literally, even if it's just a talk a month or a year to high school and middle school students so that they have a living representation, you'll be surprised how that pays you back years from now. So that last part of it, so first part, again, understanding your own power and strengths. 2, investing forwards and backwards. And 3, again, keeping that same energy. Like pharmacy school is one thing, but it's really the impact that you make after you graduate. Because when I say after you graduate, you're still hopefully using those 4 years that you've had, or 8 years for some of you, as practice to the type of professional change you're going to make or professional impact you're going to make in our profession. We need more pharmacists pushing our profession forward versus talking about all the negative things and reasons why we're not where we're at. Like, you were created, or you came to your school to be the reason why, the answer to our profession and how we can take it forward, and to literally be at every stage. So those are the 3 things I would leave with any pharmacy student or even current pharmacist. You are enough. Make sure you're investing forward and backward. And then 3, what are you doing now to make sure that we have a better future tomorrow?
Yeah, amazing advice, Dr. Okpamen. And so I'll go ahead and wrap things up. Did you have anything you wanted to plug, or anything, upcoming events or anything like that you wanted to kind of put a blast megaphone on real fast?
Nothing major. Just stay, if you're not following me already personally, you can follow me at George Jockey. I'm off Instagram for some time right now. Yeah. Or you can follow Pills, LinkedIn, at Pills Connect on Instagram. You can follow me on LinkedIn. I'm still a little active there, but other than that, my reputation hopefully will allow you to get to things as they come. Right now, again, I'm in a phase right now where I'm staying grounded for this first month and really trying to make sure that I got my house in order. 2021 is going to be an amazing year. Yeah, so. No, absolutely. It's definitely going to be an amazing year, I think, for both of us. All right. Well, Dr. Okpamen, this has been an amazing podcast. Once again, this has been Pillow Talk Podcast. We're trying to bridge the gap between healthcare, entrepreneurship, culture, creativity, and mindset. And I think this was a perfect exemplification of that, of those values and of that goal. All right, Dr. Okpamen, absolute pleasure as always. Awesome, man. I appreciate you, Norman. Go Cougs, U of H, Texas Southern.
Hook 'em.
What's up, Texas? All right, man. Thanks, man. Texas. Have a great one.
Of course. Have a great one.